Hello. Today we're gonna talk about the issue in media about China and African countries. Africa is not a country. Racists treat Africa as a country. No, Africa is a continent with African countries. And there is this problematic narrative about China and African countries. Okay, so first we're gonna talk about the the narrative, what it is, and then facts, and after that we are going to go to some truth about the situation, what people call debunk false theories, and then we are gonna discuss why this is a problem, and I'm gonna give some opinions, and then that's it. Okay, so the narrative in media and in news organizations, both high reputation news organizations and low reputation news organizations, conspirators, is that China colonizes Africa, but I mean African countries. That China is engaged in neo-colonialism, new colonialism, or just colonialism. Okay. A couple of facts. Colonialism, as we know it, in regards to Africa, African countries, African people, is slavery. It's the mass murder of black people. Colonialism is mass murder of black people when it comes to Africa and its countries and its people. Colonialism, there is black people in chains, black people lynched, black people murdered, mass murdered, for fun, to steal their resources, steal their land, steal their countries, to steal what they have. Everything they have, their lives, their destinies, their futures, their children, their languages. Colonialism against African countries is terrorism against civilians, mass murder of civilians. Colonialism against African countries is what Britain, England, UK, Great Britain, United Kingdom, whatever they call themselves, they committed colonialism against African countries. Mass murder of black people for almost 1,000 years. For fun. Mass murder of black people for racism. Just mass murder of them to steal their things, their land, their resources, their languages. Britain did that. Mass murder of black people for almost 1,000 years. Colonialism against African countries. That's a fact. China does not do any of that. China does not mass murder black people to steal their resources for almost 1,000 years, or 100 years, or any years. So you cannot call that colonialism when it comes to China. You can call that business transactions. What China is doing, building infrastructure in African countries. Trading with African countries, buying their grains, setting up factories in African countries, selling Chinese telephones in African countries. Now that's a fact. The fact of the situation is that high reputation news organizations, or just organizations, promote this narrative about China and colonialism, which is a term used for the mass murder of black people to steal their resources. They use this term for China, which is insane. It is insane. For example, the University of Cornell, a high reputation organization, uses this term, writes articles that uses this term about China. But I mean, honestly, the universities in America were to a large extent funded on slavery, like Harvard, which also writes articles about China and colonialism. But I mean, why not? The whole university was funded with the slavery of black people, the murder of black people. So I mean, why not? Let's just deny black people everything, which is the pattern. Deny them their history, deny them the correct term of terms that were used to describe their history randomly on China. I mean, like, who cares, right? Who cares? Who cares? But about this Cornell University propagation of this narrative, an example is the article China's Neocolonialism in the Political Economy of AI Surveillance, written by Sharma Ishan in the Cornell International Affairs Review. That's one example. About Harvard, the article's name is China's Investment in Africa, the New Colonialism. Yes. Then other academics, I mean, there are like a lot of other academics writing this and getting published in academic journals too in America. For example, Emerging Powers and Neo-Colonialism in Africa, written by Mark Langan. All the articles and links are going to be in the video information. I mean, it's crazy. Is that a fact? Does that belong in this section? I don't know. But it's, I mean, what are we going to do? But because it's America, with its, history of slavery and racism against black people, mostly, the United States of America government also promotes this idea of China and colonialism of African countries. Links in the video info. And then the last high reputation organization we're going to bring up is New York Times. Again, New York Times was a conspirator in the Iraq war, the attack of America against Iraq, based on conspiracies. So I mean, what is the... I mean, like, at this point, it's a fact. Like, New York Times cannot be trusted, like, when it comes to Iraq or China. Now, in 2017, they wrote an article that was called, Is China the World's New Colonial Power? Link in the video info. And I mean, no. Okay, that's the high reputation organizations that are like promoting this false narrative about China and colonialization of African countries. Colonialization is slave tradery and mass murder of black people for fun. like Britain, England, UK, whatever the hell they call themselves did. And China does not do that. Now, time for low reputation organizations that promote that. And I mean, they do this, you know, because they get, you know, the stamp of approval from high reputational organizations that we already mentioned. But anyway, so India, which has border problems with China and cannot be trusted when it comes to commentary about China or just, you know, casual, you know, insults about China. Okay, some website called IndianFolk.com published an article called Chinese Neo-Colonialism in Africa. All the links in the video info. Times of India, India Times, published an article that a classic example of neo-colonialism of China is Sri Lanka. And I mean, India cannot be trusted for neutral, objective, factual commentary about China because they have border issues with China and they'll do anything they can to make China look negative. And Japan also cannot be trusted about China. First of all, Japan attacked China, caused millions and millions of people to die, similarly to how Germany attacked Poland and caused millions and millions of people to die. And for some, and then Japan lost the war. They lost what they gained by attacking China, because they got nuked by America, and then they become best friends with America after they got nuked by America. So I mean, that's totally crazy too. But Japan hates China, even though Japan was the one that attacked China. But I mean, they'd have to hate China in order to attack China. So I mean, then they lost the war. So then they just, continued to hate China. So Japan, China. In the Japan-China situation, Japan cannot be trusted either, similarly to India, because, I mean, Japan doesn't even have a border with China. It's just like a border of a sea. But, I mean, anyway, like, they attacked China, they lost the war anyway, so, I mean, they're just bitter. Japan Times wrote in 2018 an article called Revisiting Chinese Neo-Colonialism, and whatever. And then Australia, I call them Austracistlia because they stand on all the corpses of all the black people that they genocided, and now they spit out, morals about other countries. Standing on the corpses of black people, you're gonna give us morals? You should give us tips on how to, treat black people like you did in the genocide of all the black people that originally lived in Australia. So anyway, they write, constantly a lot about China, and it's all Fox News style. Because Fox News and Rupert Murdoch came from Australia, and, that's what they deal with there. Okay, and we're just going to list the rest of examples of low-level reputation organizations that write the same narrative about China and African countries. National Interest writes that why China is taking over Africa's resources one country at a time. TNI writes China's neo-colonialism. Newint.org writes about China's neo-colonialism. E-ir.info writes China in Africa a form of neo-colonialism. Countercurrents.org writes neo-colonialism, white supremacy, and the challenge of China. Yeah, because no. Newsdecoder.com writes China and Africa and neo-colonialism. AfricaTimes.com writes, is China the neo-colonial power in Africa? And I mean, Okay, so the last no, no. Okay, just no. After all of that, let's talk about articles and people that analyze the actual situation about China and investment transactions in African countries. Okay. The first one we're going to talk about, and these are all from high-level reputation organizations. The first one is Brookings, the Brookings Institute organization, that in 2015 wrote and published an article called "What Do We Know About the Chinese Land Grab in Africa?" It's written by Amadou Sy, who is a black person, writing about black people's situation in African countries. That is something that we're going to talk about a little bit later. The black person commenting on black people's situation. And then, yeah. This article debunks concludes that this narrative about China colonializing African countries is false. It's a false narrative. It's a conspiracy. Oh, okay. The next article that is there a better word for debunk? Removes a conspiracy? No, destroys a conspiracy? Mitigates the conspiracy? No. Like, I mean, that basically destroys the conspiracy. Then, the organization is The Diplomat, it is a magazine anyway. So they write in 2020, is China a new colonial power? How well do the claims of neo-colonialism stand up? And it destroys the conspiracy too, because the conspiracy is false. The next article that destroys the conspiracy is published by the Washington Post, written by Deborah Breutigam. The title of the article is "U.S. Politicians Get China in Africa All Wrong." The next article is... Oops. It is written by a black person. Okay, I'm just gonna put a link in the video info. I don't know which organization published this, but it's an yeah, wow. Okay, yeah, I'm just putting the link in there. Oh, the title of our article is called "The Economic Consequences of China-Africa Relations and Debunking Myths in the Debate." Ooh. Okay. Okay, let's talk about problems with this narrative. First and foremost, it is based on nothing. The premise, the base of this conspiracy is false, it's wrong. Then this narrative of China colonializing, neo-colonializing, new colonializing African countries and their people and their resources is wrong. wrong because the word colonialism is established when it comes to African countries' history to be mass murder of black people, terrorism against civilians, in organized murder of civilians. And to use this word when, for first, no black people are getting murdered in an organized system, resources are not being stolen by China, is wrong. It's all wrong. It's just wrong. It's wrong. It is insane to use descriptors for mass murder of black people. It is insane to use the same descriptors for mass murder of black people in colonialism of African countries. It's insane to use the same descriptors for Chinese businesses and transactions in African countries. It's insane to use the same descriptors. It's false, it's wrong, it's immoral, it's racistical because just belittle the suffering of black people by using colonialism and, the mass murder of black people, for like whatever, like everything is colonialism. Everything can be used without, thought, just for a conspiracy. Okay, I think it's worth saying it again, that colonialism of African countries, African people, African languages, African lands, African history, and African everything, African countries, is about colonialism of African countries is about slavery of black people, the mass murder of black people for hundreds and hundreds of years, putting black people in chains, lynching black people, mass murdering black people, women and children, for fun, to steal their resources, their land, their culture, their history, their people. Terrorism against civilians of African countries. China never did that. China never did that. Countries such as UK, Britain, England, Great Britain, United Kingdom, whatever they call themselves, they committed colonialism against African countries. Britain mass murdered black people for almost 1,000 years for fun. Stole their people, murdered their people, stole their resources, their history, their culture, their development. Okay. The next problem is that the people who write about this neo-colonialism, colonialism, false conspiracy against China, is that they are not black. They are mostly not black. And to channel this hysteria, this disgust against China as a non-black person writing basically for a black community, to defend a black country with black people in it, there are problems with that. I'm gonna coin a new phrase based on old phrases. I'm gonna call this blackface journalism. To put on the mask, the metaphorical mask, and be offended as a non-black person writing about the situation in black people's country, and being somewhat hysterical about it, is just like blackface, putting on black people, putting on makeup to look like a black person, is racist. It is very racist. First of all, this organization can just hire a black person to write about this situation. It's racistical to not hire a black person to do a black person's job, or to do a job that is more fitting for a black person. Anyway, like the nerve to spread a false conspiracy, or like false information, a conspiracy, when you're not black, and this situation is something that affects theoretically negatively black people of a black country, or a country in Africa that has mostly black people in it. It's racism. It's blackface journalism. Like, if you're not black, then can you wait until black people give their commentary and their analysis of the situation before you, who is not black, give your non-black conspiracy? Fortunately, articles that debunk, that destroy this conspiracy, have black people that write those articles. So, take it from a black person who tells the truth about the situation. It destroys the conspiracy. Yeah. Whew. Okay, so blackface journalism. My opinions. What are my opinions about the situation? We have established what colonialism of African countries and their people, and the mass murder of black people, what it is. That's colonialism of African countries. The question is this what China does? No, China does not mass murder black people to steal their resources. It's not colonialism. It's not colonialism. It's not neo-colonialism. It's not new colonialism. It's not none of that. The true terms are business transactions. China does business with African countries and their people. That's all. It's impossible to use any colonialism, any neo-colonialism, or any other words for this situation. It's insane and it's racistical. It's racism. It's like, we don't care what the word colonialism means for black people. We're just gonna use it for whatever. It's racism. You need to have respect for what happened to the black people of the African countries, and not use colonialism that mass murdered black people. You cannot use that word for anything. It's just idiotic and racism. And somehow it's just, casually, it's just casually, accepted among news organizations to, spread the word colonialism like this. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Black people's history doesn't matter. Huh. Oh, anything to attack China. Casual racism is okay. It's not. These hysterical conspirators just want to scream about China and China's non-democracy that doesn't murder any black people, and then they will literally just, racistically ignore that it hurts black people's history by using terms for black people's history for things that are not that. Colonialism is the mass murder of black people. Well, it's a very large, important part of it. It's just racism, it's sick, it's ignorant racism, it's veiled racism, it's casual racism to just belittle black people's history, to just, you know, smear China in a false conspiracy too. Ah! It's insane. I mean, do these journalists need to be reminded about what colonialism of African countries was? Do they need to see the photos of black people in chains? The corpses of black people murdered in the colonialism of African countries? Do they need to see a corpse of a black person? Because there are photos of that. It's easy to be reminded of what colonialism of African countries was. There's a lot of blood of black people in Africa that came from the colonialism of black people in African countries. When did China colonize Africa's countries and Africa's countries' people? Which country did China colonize? What black person did China put in chains? What black person did China lynch? What black person did China murder in the colonialization of an African country and its people? During how many 100 years did China murder black people for fun in the colonialization of Africa? What does this neo-colonialism from some twisted conspiracy and racism come from? What is the problem that conspirators have to write this insane false information? It's unacceptable.